In the last session, we are discussing about the MCS deep dive, like what exactly happened when MCS we create, when we create the machine creation service, what happens. So, if we recall, first of all, we have the master image, then we create the catalog. Okay. Yes. Anything like we create pulled or dedicated anything. So in both the case, the process will be similar. Okay. So when you create the catalog, so it will ask us like whether you want to create a catalog for a pooled machine or dedicated machine. So we'll select the master image. So once you finish the catalog, once you finish the image or catalog creation process, so it will start with the creation of a snapshot. Automatically, it will create a snapshot. Then it will create a full copy of snapshot. Then after that, it will create a temporary VM and a temporary disk. Okay. So in the temporary VM and temporary disk, it will be created just to verify the MCS process. MCS process means when we do the MCS, actually what happens, we have in the image, we have all the operating system, we have the in the operating system, in the master image, we have operating system applications. Okay, there will be DHCP IP. So when this temporary VM and the temporary disk created, it will uh, do the sysprep. It will do the sysprep. It will check for the DHCP that all the machines when it is going to create should get the IP. It will check for the KMS license. Those process it happens through the MCS process. Okay, and that MCS process it will be updated in the snapshot. Okay. After that, it will create a replica for each storage. Suppose I have when I have mapped the hypervisor, that hypervisor have suppose uh, two storage. Okay, so it will create a replica for each storage. The benefit is if in case one storage is down, so the VM in another storage will not be impacted. So what happen if you have MCS? Yes, MCS agent. MCS agent means that is VDA. MCS agent is the VDA, virtual desktop agent. That is what we should install. Okay. Delivery controller does not have any agent. Delivery controller will not install any agent on the delivery controller. Delivery controller is the server, and MCS where we prepare the master image, we should install agent. So when we install agent, okay, that also I will tell you today. So like what happens in the agent case. Okay, so that I will tell you. So when in the replica, what happens? Suppose you have two storage. This is one storage, and this is one storage. This replica will be created in both the storages. Here also one replica will be created, while here also one replica will be created. Now this MCS process will distribute the machines between the storages. So it will divide. So if I'm creating 10 machines, so 5 machines will be created here, 5 machines will be created here. These 5 machines will point to this replica, and this 5 machine will point to this replica. So that is how. So if in case anything happened to this storage will be working fine. Okay. This is how it works. Okay. Now, after the replica is created, the next it will create a different disk. So if I have created 20 machines, so it will create 20 different disks. Okay. If I have created 20 different machines, it will create 20 different disks. Now the different disks have two things. Here it will depends upon what type of machine you have created. Okay. If you have created random, if you have created a random or pooled, this disk, if you have created random or pooled, this disk will be reset or recreated. This disk will be reset or recreated when the VDA machine will reboot. And what information is stored in this particular disk? Changes. This disk will store any changes made on this machine. So it will store temporary data. Now, what type of data it is? If it will create one machine and assume that you have created a random or pooled machine and you have logged in. So when you log in, the user profile will be loaded, and the user profile, say like in the my document, desktop, if the user is going to create any file in the in in the my document, suppose user is creating any data or any file in the my document, or that will store in his profile, not in the on the machine. So here it says any changes made on the machine or any data stored on the machine, any changes made on the machine, or it will store temporary data created on the machine. For example, I want to create something in the C drive. I want to create something in the program files. These are not stored in the profile. These are directly you are modifying in the machine itself. Suppose you are installing some software, you are installing some application. Whatever the data that is directly storing on the machine, that will be temporary. Okay, that is non-persistent. That is why it is non-persistent, means the data is not persist. And whenever the machine will reboot, okay, the data, this particular disk could be either reset or recreated. When it will reset, that depends upon the hypervisor type. If the hypervisor support, if hypervisor support clone and boot, most of the hypervisor support. Okay, if the hypervisor support clone and boot, okay, so this will just reset the disk. But if the clone and boot is not supported, then first of all it will detach the different disk. It will recreate a new disk. New disk will be attached, and then the old disk will be deleted. So that is the long process, long task. It is loaded on the machine. This is clear. Now, if you have static, if you are going to create a static machine, if you are going to create a static machine or static kind of VDA. So here what happens, any data stored on the VDA machine will, will be persist even after reboot. So there will be no change to the data. That is why you need to select whether you want a persistent desktop or a non-persistent desktop. So any data which is stored on the VDA machine will be persist. Suppose you want to install any application, you have created anything in the C drive, program tools, not in the profile. Apart from the profile, anything is stored on the VDA machine will be persist. Now this is where the different disk will get created for each machine. Different disk is ready. Now in parallel, it will create. Next in parallel, it will create. Absolutely same. The process is same. Whether you create a, because here what happens when you create a catalog, it will create a snapshot. Even though you have a snapshot, already you have created a snapshot. When you select the snapshot, so it will start from here. It will full copy of the snapshot it will create. This section you cannot create manually. So this stage is a manual process. Catalog creation wizard, you are going to create manual process. And snapshot, this is what you can create manual or automatic. The rest of the process is automatic. You don't have any control. Okay? That MCS will do. So now once the different disk is created for each machine, a replica is created, different disk is created. Meantime, what will happen? This temporary disk and temporary VM will be deleted. This is not required anymore because your main replica is connecting from the full copy of the snapshot, which is updated by MCS process. So this temporary disk and temporary VM is no more required. Now different disk, once it is created, meanwhile it will start creating the VM, create network, NIC cards, okay. Rest of the process it will follow, okay, and it will create a OS disk. What is this OS disk? OS disk is nothing but a pointing to replica, pointing to. So that is why whenever you log into a video machine, you get C drive. C drive is for the replica, and D drive, which is for your different disk. Friends, disk. Okay. So like that, machine will be created. Okay. Once the machine is created, it will attach whatever the different disk it was created for each machine. Attach the different disk. Now your full machine is ready. Okay. This is what the MCS process is. So by the time your machine means your replica is creating. Once your replica is created, it will start creating the different disk first. Once the different disk is created for each machine, which will be having all the temporary storages. Okay, before it create a different disk, that is one more disk it is created. Okay, let me that also I need to it's create a different disk. Before it creates a different disk, there is one more disk is getting created. That is called identity disk. Okay. This identity disk is a 16 MB file, okay, which will store your system information or VDA machine information. VDA machine information. So this is how it works. So how many disk it create? It create one identity disk. It create one different disk. It create a C drive. It won't create because C drive it will just point to the. It will just point to the C drive means it will just point to the replica. D drive is a different disk. Identity disk you cannot see it. Identity disk is a video machine information store. So what is this information? So first it will create a different disk so that whenever the machine is created, the replica will first of all created identity disk, and in that identity disk, the machine video machine information like what is the machine name, what is the IP address, those information stored, and this is permanent. This won't get changed. Okay. So otherwise, you can ask, okay, when different disk is getting created, when C drive will be having the is pointing to replica, then where the video machine's IP address, okay, SIDs, computer SIDs, where it gets stored, because each machine will have a separate name, each machine will have a different IP. Then where that information stored, these are all stored in the identity disk. Then next identity disk, it will create the. So different disk VM creation, create NIC, it will start in parallel. Like it will start creating different disk, it will start create a VM, it will start create NIC, it will it is a continuous process. These are all will be happening, automatically it will happen. So these are the automatic process. This is also automatic process. All are automatic process. Identity disk creation is automatic process. Once the machine is created, attach the OS disk, identity disk. Okay, it will attach the identity disk, OS disk, everything. It will attach to the VM, make a bundle, and the machine is ready. At the end, your VDM machine will be ready over here. This is your VDM machine. Finally, you will get, okay, with your identity disk, different disk, okay, available here. This is what the MCS process does. Doubts? Okay. Okay. So next, what happens after the machines are created? Then you can provide the access from the storefront server. Okay. So in the storefront server case, what happens? Now you have a delivery controller, you have the machines ready, but those machines once you have created, suppose in the previous what we have discussed, you have created the machines. But now how these machines will be accessible? Now whatever the VDI machines we have created in the previous discussion, okay, using the MCS process, how these machines will be accessible. So for that we need to create a storefront server. Okay. So in the storefront server, hierarchy also like this. First of all, in the storefront server, you create a store. Create a store means if where each store will have its own website. Each store have its URL, own URL, and URL also there are different type of URL, store URL, web URL. Okay, so when you are going to create, it will create web URL and store URL. For each store, it will create store URL. Why there are two types of URL? Even there is one more called PN agent or service URL. Okay. PN agent was the old name actually. So still now it is getting used. Yes, you want to give the URL for mobile devices. For mobile devices, even store URL, PN agent URL, both are you can give, but PN agent URL is the legacy one, but store URL, that is what you can give. Web URL is for the browser. If you are accessing the Citrix environment through the browser, you can use the web URL, that is through web browser, and store URL is that if you want to go to access through your Citrix Workspace app. If you have the Citrix Workspace app client, okay, if you want to directly access the URL inside the Citrix Workspace app or mobile devices, okay, mobile app, okay, so you need to use the store URL. Okay? These are the different type of URL for your convenient. It has been created. This URL will once it will create a store and it will create a store URL, and this particular store, when the storefront server will create a store, okay, this store will point to the particular delivery controller. Store to the delivery, point to the specific delivery controller. So delivery controller means one site, one environment. Suppose you have 2-3 delivery controller, we can point to all the 2-3 delivery controllers for the better load balancing. If in case one goes down, another delivery controller will be providing the service. You just recall the connection flow. Okay. So you can later on you can modify to the storefront store or storefront URL for more for more enhancement. You can change the logo. You can point to the next color. When you configure next color, you have to modify the URL also, like web URL. You can change. Okay. In the store level, you can configure the say authentication methods. You want to give. You want to give like only AD authentication or MFA-based authentication or smart card authentication, how the users you want to configure. So all those methods you can configure it on the storefront server. Okay. So when the storefront server is pointed to delivery controller, whatever the VDA you have created, okay. Suppose you have all the VDA recently you have discussed like through MCS process, whatever the VDA you have created, the user can access. Okay. So storefront is a very important component. Without that, user will not be able to access the Citrix environment. To access the Citrix environment, Citrix need a website. That website is your storefront server. Okay, specific web server. This is required. Okay. Now coming to the VDA, when you are installing VDA, suppose when at the time of installation, VDA at the time of installation, when you install the VDA at the time of installation or reboot, whenever the machine will reboot, the VDA machine will reboot. This will connect to the delivery controller, whatever. During the installation, you have specified the VDA delivery controller details. Okay, it will connect to the delivery controllers that was provided during the installation. So what happens? Why I'm telling is, so what happens whenever any VDA machine reboot or video was installed? So what happened whenever the video was reboot or installed? It will point to or it will communicate to the delivery controller for what? For VDA registration. For registration. This is also very important, part in Citrix environment. If the VDA is not registered in your Citrix environment or in your delivery controller, then you will not be able to log in. That VDA is like useless. This is kind of your normal machine. It will not provide or any connection through Citrix. This is just a normal machine. User cannot access that. So VDA should be registered in the. It should show that registered in your studio in the console. If you go to the check the machines, how many VDA machines you have created. If you see the status should say registered. It should not say that not registered. If it is say that not registered, then that machine is not accessible via Citrix or that machine is not, user cannot access. So how these machines will get registered? So what happens whenever the video will reboot, okay, or during the installation, it will connect to the delivery controller. The delivery controller address you have given to the during the installation. Now, once it will connect to the delivery controller address, it will send a request for the registration. So before it get connect to the delivery controller, so what happens? The VDA does it will check for the in AD server. It will, in the because delivery controller address you have given during the installation. Now first what happens? VDA will check in the AD server that VDA the delivery controller what you have given. Usually we give FQDN, okay, not the IP address. We give the FQDN. Okay, FQDN means fully qualified domain name, like delivery controller server name .domain.com or any domain name that we have created. So what happens? VDA will connect with the AD server, check if that delivery controller is available in a domain. Usually we do DNS resolution. So you can ping based on machine name, you can ping based on IP. So this is how the VDA will check with the AD server if that delivery controller is available. Okay, is a valid delivery controller. AD server will return, okay, yes, this is the delivery controller. It will acknowledge, okay, with the delivery controller host name, whatever is available in your AD. Then the VDA machine will connect to that particular delivery controller. So it is a random process. If in your environment, if you have 2-3 delivery controller, it will start from the top, okay, and it will start communicating. Suppose first delivery controller is down, so it will go to the second delivery controller. This is how the registration process will start. So what happens? VDA will connect to the AD server, check for the delivery controller availability in the domain. Then it will send the request for the registration. Once the delivery controller receive the request, again delivery controller also check in the AD server that this is the VDA is trying to get registered. Is it the valid VDA? So even that also delivery controller also will check in AD. Now AD, because they both are in same domain, if there is in different domain also, that should be trust. Then once the AD server return, okay, this is the VDA machine, okay, then the delivery controller will acknowledge to the registration and the registration process will start. This is just a communication to check the delivery controller is reachable, delivery controller is fine. But what happens if the time is different? Time is different in the sense, like here it is 7:40 a.m. Okay? But in delivery controller it is 7:30 a.m. 10 minutes gap. So the registration will not happen. Why? Because the for the video registration, the maximum time gap should be within 5 minutes. Okay. So if it is 7:40, then this should be either, either it should be like, 7:34 or 7:30, 36, 35 or 36, or 7:44. But 4 to 5 minutes gap should be there. Minimum 4 minutes gap should be there. Okay. Then it is possible to get the registration. Otherwise, one more challenge is the VDA is reachable. VDA is reachable, it is acknowledged, everything is fine. But in firewall, port 80 is blocked. Port 80 or 443 is blocked. Because that is not the, VDA registration, or that will, if this port is not open, then also it will stop the VDA registration. Okay. So these are the some cases that you need to cross check. So first of all, VDA agents are installed and you have provided the proper delivery controller address, firewall port is open, time, then the registration will happen. Sorry. So do you have any queries? We have discussed like the video registration, we have discussed with the storefront how it will access, the lab will do, then only we'll be able to understand about the storefront part. Okay. We have discussed about the MCS. Any doubts? Okay. So next, what we'll discuss is, so in storefront server, there is one more authentication method is there that is called XML based authentication. So earlier what we have discussed in the storefront, that is in the architecture level or connection flow. In the connection flow, so lab in Azure cloud will be doing tomorrow. Will be going to access the Citrix and will guide you like the step by step. You'll be sharing the screen so that you can capture the screenshot during when you perform the lab. Since we are recording, that will be helpful. So no need to take any screenshot at all. But we'll be going through the complete process through the session. Okay. So now, if you are going to when the user is accessing to the storefront server and it is pointing to the delivery controller. So in the backend, you need to you can provide what type of authentication mechanism that storefront server you can configure. Okay, this is what you can put in the storefront server. We can modify this in the storefront server. Okay. So there is one more level of authentication. So usually what happen when the user, suppose this user is accessing the storefront URL. If the user is accessing the storefront URL, what happen? The storefront will connect with the AD server. Okay. For authentication, because storefront is part of your domain, the storefront can communicate with your domain AD server, and it will validate the user and authenticate the user. So this is where the authentication will start. Once the authentication is done, the storefront server will connect to the delivery controller. Recall the process. Then the delivery controller again will validate with AD that the user who has logged in is part of which security group. If that is successful, then your delivery controller will connect to the S to check which are the applications are available for that user. This is the default method. There is no specific change is required. But now, if I want to use XML-based authentication, that is something is called XML-based authentication. What happen in that case? In the storefront server, I will modify something, I will change in something that is called that is called credential validation. Okay. In credential validation, what happened? User enter the credential in the storefront, but here the storefront does not go to the AD server. Here it does not go to the AD server. Okay. Because in the storefront server, we have configured password validation and provided the delivery controller address. Now what happened? The username password will be sent to the delivery controller, and delivery controller will connect with AD, where it will validate the authentication plus it will check which security group it belongs to. Both the work it is done in the delivery controller. But the challenge is delivery controller will have extra load. Okay, because it has to perform the authentication also. So that is why we keep storefront server separate. But due to some security reason, some client they don't want storefront server is part of their domain. In this case, because storefront server is not doing any authentication with any, now the storefront server can be in work group or can be in some other network which is not connecting to your AD server. Okay, so you can isolate your storefront server, and storefront server only communicate with the delivery controller. So in that case, this XML-based authentication, or we call it as a delegated authentication, will work. Some organizations they are having still, okay, this delegated authentication. This is how it works. XML-based authentication, delegated authentication that you can modify. This is the access part. Okay. Now let us discuss about when tomorrow when we are going to create the when we are going to create the catalogs or delivery group. So we should know that how this catalog and delivery group works. Okay. So this is your master image, and this is one your master image. Let me talk in. This is what is your master image, and this is Windows 11, and this is Windows Server. Okay. We have created a catalog over here. In both the cases, there will be separate catalog because there are separate machines. Okay. And this is the catalog. If I want to create a delivery group can be created by picking up machines from different catalogs. Multiple catalog also possible. I can create delivery group by picking machine from a single catalog or multiple catalogs. Now what happens? This is the catalog. If I want to add machine from this catalog to delivery group, this is not possible. Why? Because this is the server operating system, this is the Windows 11 operating system. Both can be random machine. The provisioning type can be random, but here the OS is not matching. The OS type not matching. Okay. So similarly, we cannot create machines which are from the different type of provisioning type. Suppose I have created the first machine I have created pooled or random. The second one we have created static. There are two different machines. Still, in the delivery group, when you create, we cannot pick machines from both the catalogs because the both are different. And here, provisioning type not matching. That is why we cannot pick machines from the different. Are you getting this? If in case you have one image, okay, another image you have, okay, this is Windows Server, maybe some different version, okay, and this is also Windows Server, okay, and both are Windows Server, and you have created catalog, separate catalog, and here also you have created catalog. So I can create a delivery group by picking up machines from both the catalogs. This is possible because the machines type are the operating systems is same. Okay. Similarly, if you have different type of the provisioning methods. Okay. If you have provisioning method, say for example, this is either pulled or static. If it is pulled or if this is pulled, then also operating system should same. Operating system should be server, and if both are pulled, then you can create the catalog. Then you can create the delivery group by picking up machines from different catalogs. Okay, this is clear. Next, let me check what components. So based on the main curriculum and course, based on the main course, this is what will be performing. Okay. So architecture part we have discussed most of the components that these are the lab section it is there. But theoretical part we have discussed about the storefront server, delivery controller, and there are few things we will just focus on the lab like setting up the UP universal printer, okay, and we'll be preparing the virtual machine or image. So these are some policies that we'll be focusing on. So we need to first of all we need to start with the hypervisor. We'll be setting up the Hyper-V. Okay. So here we'll set up the Hyper-V in our lab. So this is what we'll do. Coming to the design document. So design document is purely whatever the architecture that we have discussed. Okay. When you prepare the design document, so I cannot create the document for you, but I just need to discuss like whenever we are going to prepare a document. So to prepare any design document, okay, we should have to prepare any design. Okay, design document there are two types. One is high level, okay, that is called HLD, and a low level design document, a low level design that is called LLD, low level design. In high level design, you can have in the high level information like a generic information, how a Citrix environment you can deploy, what are the components you need, and how it work with best. Low level design is very client specific, client requirement specific. For example, if I'm going to set up the environment in particular client, what should be my name, machine name, what should be the site name, what should be how many delivery group or catalog I need to create, how many image I need to create, what should be the machine names with all IP port, everything will be in detail. Okay, this is the design. But before you go with the design, first you need to do the assessment. Until unless we know the what is my requirement, how can I make a design? Suppose, for example, if I ask, okay, you build a house, but before building a house, you need a architecture. You need to know what is your requirement, how many floor you need, how many rooms you need, what should be the room size, where you need bathroom, where you need puja room. So these are all we should know. That is called assessment. Assessment means if there is already some, maybe you can say, okay, you come to my house, you see what is my current house. Best now based on that, you design how you want to give me the new house. Okay, the current house will be different, new house will be different, but still you can ask, okay, you check my current house, I want a kind of, similar, like similar rooms I need. This is how it should, the bathroom, maybe somewhere here and there you can suggest, but this many rooms I need. Okay, so for that I need to go to your house and I can check, how many rooms are there. So this is all about the assessment. Once you have the assessment, then you can go for the design. Usually, when we prepare the design, in our low level design, we prepare in such a case, in such a way that if I give someone a low level design, some generic, if anybody is having just 1 or 2 years of experience in Citrix, if I give him the low level design, he can able to deploy because everything is there. All the process step, what should the machine configuration, what should be the OS name, what tools we should install, everything, what should be the site name, everything is written over there. That is where we need to create the design document where we can, so first of all, we need to perform the assessment, we need to understand the requirement, and then we need to prepare the design. So next module, what we need to do, we need to set up the hypervisor where we'll be working on the hypervisor console and we'll create the machines. So some of the case I'll be, helping you. So like, if you don't want to go with the Hyper-V setup, you let me know. I will be installing, at least I'll be installing the Hyper-V and I will create temporary machines for you so that you can directly start with the I'll be setting up the SQL server. I'll create the AD. So like these are the prerequisites. Okay, these are the prerequisites I can make ready so that you can directly start setting up the delivery controller. So how you want, you tell me. Otherwise, what you can do, we can start with the Hyper-V setup. You will be installing in the session itself. We'll be installing Hyper-V in the session itself. We'll be setting up the domain controller. We'll create the domain controller, we'll install the SQL server, then we'll create the views for delivery controller, then we'll create for install the delivery controller. Those things we need to do. So these are the prerequisites. Okay, so these are the prerequisites whether you want to do it in your hand or we can start with the only the Citrix component, or else if you want to start with this, then we'll do that. We can start from the Hyper-V setup first. So in the continuous lab, I need your support, like since it is on the Azure, so we need a huge storage. So that will be chargeable, even though you use it or don't use. So some particular components will be chargeable. So we need to set up. Like maybe one day we can leave the gap for weekend. If we start the lab, it may take up to 4 to 5 days we can complete or everything, because we need to discuss also. It's not just we need to do everything. We need to discuss. I need to guide you like how to install, what component we should do, create the catalog, what are the process you should follow. So all these things you need to do in the lab. So in that case, we need to case actually we need to be complete within a flow. Like if there is a huge gap, like for example, today we'll be doing some Hyper-V setup and leave it for a week. So the lab will be getting charged for that. So I need to check with, if it is too long means then again I have to delete, but not issue. So if I delete also, whatever you have created, I will bring back to that. Okay. I'll do it in the backend and I'll give it to you wherever you have left. So that is how I can do. So it is up to you, like how you want to do it. It is better that suggested that you should continue in the flow. Any doubts for today's session? So far, whatever we have discussed, if you have gone through the you have the recordings and all, please let me know. Because next what we do in the lab, we'll discuss about how the policies get implemented, how this the printers policies we'll discuss a little bit. Okay, and profile also, how the profile get worked. So these are some topics that we'll discuss. So when we create some, suppose now we'll be doing some lab, like we are preparing the Hyper-V, we are creating the game, and by that time there are some lab, it will take some time. Like for example, delivery controller installation may take 20-30 minutes. Installation may take 20-30 minutes. So in that case, during that time, what we can do, we can discuss some topics like policies, printing, profile. So those are the time we can use to discuss about some of the other topics. So the lab once you have done means you can, you'll be very like comfortable in the environment.